There is a habit so common, so deeply embedded in the way most people think about money, that the majority of people who have it never even recognize it as a problem. It does not announce itself. It does not come with a warning. It simply sits there, quietly, working against you every single day, draining your potential, shrinking your future, and making sure that no matter how much money passes through your hands, very little of it stays. And the painful truth is this: the habit is not spending too much, though that is often part of it. The habit is not earning too little, though that may be real as well. The habit is something far more fundamental. It is the way you think about money itself. Now think about that. Before the first dollar ever enters your life, there is already a belief system in place that will decide what happens to it. And if that belief system is broken, if it is built on the wrong foundation, then it does not matter how much money you earn. The habit will take it. The habit will justify it. The habit will return you again and again to the same place you started. So let me walk you through what this habit looks like, how it was built inside of you, why it persists even in people who consider themselves financially responsible, and most importantly, what you must do to replace it with something that actually works in your favor. Because here's the thing I want you to understand before we go any further. Wealth is not a matter of luck. It is not a matter of inheritance or opportunity or the right connections. Wealth is a matter of habits, small, daily, invisible habits that compound over years into either abundance or scarcity. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. That is the principle this entire conversation rests on. A few simple disciplines practiced every day. Notice it does not say genius. It does not say exceptional talent. It does not say being born into the right family or living in the right city. It says disciplines. It says practiced. It says every day. That is the foundation. And if the habits underneath your financial life are working against that principle, then you are fighting a war you do not even know you are in. Let me start with something that might be uncomfortable to hear. Most people have been trained from a very early age to see money as something that comes in and goes out. Income arrives, and almost immediately there is a reason for it to leave. The rent is due, the car payment, the electricity bill, the groceries. And once all of those are handled, whatever is left becomes available for other things: entertainment, convenience, small rewards for the week's effort. This cycle feels completely normal because for most people it is all they have ever known. It is what they watched growing up. It is what they practiced as young adults. And by the time they are earning real money, the habit is already automatic. They do not even think about it anymore. The money arrives and the money leaves, month after month, year after year. Now ask yourself honestly, does that describe the relationship you have with money right now? Not the relationship you want to have, the one you actually have, the pattern you actually live. Because there is a very important difference between the financial life you imagine for yourself and the financial life your habits are currently building. And most people, if they are willing to look carefully, will find a significant gap between the two. Here is what that gap is built on. The habit that is secretly keeping you poor is the habit of consuming everything you earn. Not dramatically, not recklessly, often very reasonably, often with genuine justification for every single purchase. The rent has to be paid, of course. The car is necessary, of course. The groceries are not optional, of course. But after all of the necessities are handled, there is still a decision to be made. And most people, without realizing it, make the same decision every single time. They consume the rest. They find ways, large and small, to absorb whatever remains until the next paycheck arrives and the cycle begins again. This is the habit. And it is invisible because it hides behind perfectly reasonable explanations. It hides behind phrases like, I work hard, I deserve this. It hides behind, I will start saving when I earn more. It hides behind, it is just a small amount. It does not really matter. And every one of those phrases, Though it may feel true in the moment, is the habit speaking, the habit defending itself, the habit ensuring its own survival at the cost of your future. If you really want to do something, you will find a way. If you do not, you will find an excuse. Read that again. Because the relationship most people have with money is built almost entirely on excuses. Not because they are dishonest people, not because they are lazy or irresponsible, but because the excuses were built in early, reinforced often, and never seriously challenged. The habit of consuming everything you earn does not feel like a bad habit. It feels like normal life. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Now I want you to picture something. Picture a farmer who works his land every single season with great effort. He plows, he plants, he waters, he tends, and every harvest season he brings in his crop and sells it. And then he eats everything the harvest produces, every bit of it. He keeps nothing aside for seeds. He keeps nothing aside for the next season. He simply consumes the full harvest because it is there, because he earned it, because he worked hard for it. And then the next season comes and he stands in front of his empty field and wonders why he is no further ahead than he was the year before. This farmer is not lazy. He is not irresponsible by nature, but he is trapped in a cycle that will never allow him to grow because he consumes everything before growth has any chance to take root. That farmer is the version of you that has been operating on autopilot with money, working hard, earning genuinely, but consuming the full harvest every time, leaving nothing to plant, nothing to compound, nothing to grow into something larger than what you started with. And the most painful part of this pattern is not any single month or any single year. The painful part is what it cost you over a decade, over 2 decades. Because money has a property that most people intellectually understand but emotionally fail to act on. Money that is kept, money that is directed and invested, grows, not dramatically at first. In fact, in the early years, it grows in a way that seems almost trivial. You set aside a small amount each month, and it becomes a slightly larger amount. It does not feel meaningful. It does not feel urgent, and so the temptation to consume it instead is always strong. But picture a drop of water finding the smallest crack in a stone. On day 1, nothing visible happens. On day 10, still nothing you would notice. But over months, over years, that water shapes the stone. It cuts through. It creates something permanent and deep. That is what consistent, disciplined financial habits do. They do not transform your life overnight, but they transform it entirely over time, in ways that are impossible to achieve by any other method. We must all suffer one of 2 things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I want you to sit with that for a moment, because it is one of the most clarifying truths I know when it comes to money. There are only 2 options. The pain of discipline, which is small and daily and feels like sacrifice in the moment, or the pain of regret, which is large and final and arrives when the window of time has closed. The pain of discipline is choosing every day to set something aside even when you would rather spend it. The pain of regret is arriving at a point in your life where you need that foundation and discovering that it was never built. Most people choose the pain of regret, not consciously, not intentionally, but by default, by continuing the habit of consuming everything they earn and telling themselves there will be more time later, more money later, a better season later, always later, until later becomes now, and now is not what they imagined. Let that sink in. You are making a choice right now with your money habits, whether you are aware of it or not. And that choice has a consequence, not a vague consequence, a specific mathematical consequence that will show up in your life 10 years from today, 20 years from today, in the form of either options or limitations. Either the freedom that discipline built or the regret that comfort created. There is no neutral ground here. Every month you operate on autopilot is a month that chose one of those 2 outcomes. The only question is, which one? Now understand something important. The money habit that keeps most people poor is not simply a behavior. It is a belief. And beliefs are harder to change than behaviors because you cannot see them directly. You can only observe their effects. The belief underneath the habit of consuming everything you earn is this: money is for using now. It is for the present. It is the reward for the work already done. And while there is something human about that belief, something understandable about wanting to enjoy what you earn, when that belief operates without a counterbalance, it becomes a trap. Because the present is always more vivid than the future. The desire you feel right now is always more immediate than the security you might want 10 years from now. And so the present always wins, every time. The immediate want defeats the future need, month after month, year after year. This is why financial discipline is not primarily a math problem. The math is actually quite simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference consistently over time. The math has been understood for centuries. The reason people fail financially is not because the math is too complicated. It is because the beliefs and emotions underneath their behavior are stronger than their intention. They know what they should do. They simply feel something stronger pulling them in a different direction. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Think about that. You can tell yourself you are going to be financially secure. You can read books about it. You can watch videos about it. You can write it down in a journal. But if the daily discipline is not there, if the habit underneath does not change, then all of that affirmation is actually making things worse. Because now you have the feeling of progress without the reality of it. You feel like you are working on your financial life because you are thinking about it, talking about it, learning about it. But the habit is still there. The money still comes in and goes out. And the gap between the financial life you imagine and the one your habits are building continues to grow wider. Now ask yourself honestly, how much of your financial effort in the past year has been affirmation and how much has been discipline? How many times have you thought about what you should do differently, and how many times have you actually done it? Not once, not occasionally, consistently, every week, every month, without exception. Because that is where the real answer lives. Not in what you intend, in what you actually do. Let me tell you something powerful about the structure of financial freedom. It is built on a single decision that gets made once and then enforced every single day. The decision is this: you pay yourself first. Before the rent, before the groceries, before anything else comes out of your income, a portion of it goes directly to your future, not what is left over, not what feels comfortable to set aside after everything else is handled. A deliberate, predetermined portion that comes off the top every single time without negotiation. This single decision restructures your entire relationship with money because it removes the choice from the moment where willpower is weakest. When you receive money and it is all sitting there, available, and the bills are piling up and the temptations are visible, the willpower to set something aside is at its most fragile. But when the decision has already been made, when the structure is already in place so that the portion for your future moves automatically before you ever see it, then the habit of the past has nothing to grab onto. The money has already gone into the right place before the old pattern activates. Picture a river. Left to its natural course, water flows where the terrain allows, taking the path of least resistance, spreading out into shallow pools that evaporate before they can build into something deep. But when a channel is cut deliberately, when the water is directed with intention, it builds force, it cuts deeper. It creates something permanent. Your income is that river. Without deliberate channels, it flows out in every direction along the path of least resistance. But with structure, with intentional direction, it builds something that lasts. Now think about this. The difference between the person who builds financial freedom and the person who does not is rarely the amount they earn. Research consistently shows that people who receive dramatic increases in income often expand their spending in exactly the same proportion. maintaining the same financial gap they had before. More money, same habit, same outcome, because the habit does not care how much money is involved. The habit simply does what habits do. It consumes whatever is available. And until the habit is replaced, more money does not solve the problem. It often makes it bigger. The major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. And when it comes to money, this truth is absolute. The value is not in the income you receive. It is in the person you become in relation to money. The person who has learned to delay gratification, who has built the discipline to direct resources with intention, who has developed the identity of someone who builds rather than merely consumes. Because that identity, once it is real, once it is the actual truth of your daily behavior and not just an aspiration, produces results that no single paycheck ever could. The question is never really about the money. It is always about what kind of person are you deciding to become? Are you becoming the kind of person who can hold money, direct it, invest it, let it compound? Or are you remaining the kind of person who receives money and passes it through, who earns and spends in an endless loop, who has a very busy financial life and yet builds almost nothing over time? Because those two people are not separated by talent or luck or opportunity. They are separated by habits. Small daily habits that seem inconsequential in any given week but become the entire difference over a decade. Let me tell you something that very few people are willing to say directly. The lifestyle you are living right now, the financial pattern you are operating inside of right now is a choice. Not entirely, of course. There are real constraints. There are real economic pressures that are not simply a matter of attitude. I am not pretending those are not real. But within whatever constraints exist in your life, there is still a margin. And what you do with that margin, what you choose to do with the space between what you earn and what you absolutely must spend, is completely and entirely your responsibility. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job, because the job will give you what the job gives you. But who you are, how you think, what habits you operate by, that determines what you do with what the job gives you. And that is where the real work is. Not finding a higher paying job, not waiting for a raise or a windfall or a change in economic circumstances. The real work is becoming the kind of person who handles money differently, who thinks about it differently, who feels differently in the moment of a spending decision, who has a longer time horizon built into every financial choice. That kind of person does not appear by accident. They are built deliberately, through practice, through the daily application of disciplines that are uncomfortable at first and then become natural, through choosing repeatedly and consistently the pain of discipline over the comfort of the moment until the discipline becomes the comfort, until the habit of building feels more natural than the habit of consuming. That is when everything changes. Not because your income suddenly doubled, but because you finally became someone different in relation to money. Now let me address something directly, because I know it is in the room. The voice that says you will start when you earn more. The voice that says the amounts you can set aside right now are so small that they barely matter. The voice that says you need to handle these other things first, get a little more stable, get a little more comfortable, and then you will start building real discipline with your money. That voice is the habit protecting itself. That voice is the single most effective mechanism that the habit of financial mediocrity has ever developed. Because it is patient, it is willing to wait. It will wait until you earn more, and then it will find new reasons to wait. It will wait until the kids are older, and then it will find other reasons. It will always find a reason to delay the discipline to some future season that never quite arrives, and the years pass, and the window of compounding narrows. And what could have grown into something significant over 30 years becomes something much smaller over 15 and something almost negligible over 5. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And that is the only thing I am asking of you right now. Not perfection, not a dramatic transformation of your entire financial life by tomorrow morning. Just a change of direction. Just one concrete decision made today that is different from the decisions the old habit would have made. Because direction is everything. The small ship that changes its heading by a few degrees will arrive at an entirely different destination after a long enough voyage. You do not need to become a completely different person by next week. You need to take one step in a genuinely different direction today. What is that step for you? What is one specific, concrete financial decision that you have been delaying that you know you should make, that the old habit has been talking you out of for weeks or months or years? That is the step. Not the grand plan, not the comprehensive strategy. Just that one step made today with real commitment that declares to yourself and to your future that the old habit no longer has the automatic authority it once had over your choices. Because here is the truth about habit change that most people miss. The habit does not disappear the first time you override it. It does not even disappear the 10th time. It persists. It argues. It finds new language to justify the old behavior. The way you replace a habit is not by fighting it directly and winning once. The way you replace a habit is by making a different choice consistently, over and over and over again, until the new choice becomes the automatic response and the old habit loses its grip. It is not dramatic. It is not fast, but it is absolutely reliable, and it is the only method that actually works. Picture a path through a forest. The old path is wide and clear. It was walked so many times that the grass never grows there anymore. That is your old financial habit. It is the easy path, the one your feet know, the one you walk without thinking. And right beside it, barely visible, is a new path, overgrown, harder to see, requiring active attention to follow. Every day you choose to walk the new path instead of the old one, the new path becomes slightly clearer, slightly easier, and the old path, no longer walked, begins to fill back in. This is how habit change works, not through willpower alone, through repetition in a new direction, day after day, until the new direction becomes the natural one. Now understand something important about the world you live in. The entire architecture of modern commerce is designed, at enormous expense and with extraordinary sophistication, to activate the habit of consumption. Every advertisement you see is engineered to make you feel that what you have is not enough, that what you could acquire would make you more comfortable, more attractive, more successful, more satisfied. The offers are constant. The triggers are everywhere. The friction to spend has been reduced to almost nothing. One click, one tap, one swipe, and the money is gone before the rational mind has even fully processed what happened. You are not fighting a small habit. You are fighting a habit that has the backing of an entire industrial system built to reinforce it. And that means the discipline required is not occasional. It is not situational. It must be structural. You must build systems into your financial life that operate even when your willpower is low, even when the temptation is high, even when the justification sounds completely reasonable, because willpower alone will never be enough against a system that sophisticated. You need structure. You need automation. You need rules that apply regardless of how you feel in any given moment. Pay yourself first, automatically. Set the amount in advance. Remove the decision from the moment of temptation. Create friction between yourself and impulsive spending. Make the path to your future easier to walk than the path of the old habit. These are not complicated strategies. They are structural changes that make the right behavior the automatic behavior. And that is the only reliable way to defeat a habit that has been operating automatically for years. Don't spend major time on minor things. And yet, that is precisely what the habit of financial mediocrity demands. It asks you to spend enormous mental and emotional energy on decisions that feel significant but are actually trivial. Should I buy this? Can I afford this? Do I deserve this? This negotiation, repeated hundreds of times a year, consumes time and attention that could be directed towards something that actually matters. The person who has built real financial discipline does not have this negotiation constantly. The structure is in place. The decisions are already made. The habit that remains is the right one, and it runs quietly in the background, building something real while the rest of life continues. Think about what that freedom would feel like. Not the freedom of having more money, though that comes with time. The freedom of not having this constant low-grade anxiety about money. The freedom of knowing that your financial habit is working for you even when you are not thinking about it. The freedom of having made the decision already, once, clearly, and having put the structure in place so that you do not have to make it again in every weak moment. That freedom is available to you. It does not require a dramatic income. It requires a different habit. Now ask yourself honestly, what would your financial life look like 5 years from today if nothing changed? If the habit that is operating right now continues to operate exactly as it has been, without interruption, for 5 more years, where does that path lead? Not the life you imagine. The life the current habit is actually building. Sit with that question. Let it be uncomfortable. Because discomfort in the face of an honest question is productive. It is the signal that something needs to change. And the stronger the discomfort, the more important the change. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Because the financial world is not going to become easier. The temptations are not going to decrease. The pressure to spend is not going to relent. The cost of things is not going to politely wait while you get your habits in order. The world will continue exactly as it is. The only variable that you control, the only thing that can actually change the outcome is you, your habits, your discipline, your willingness to override the comfortable pattern in favor of the one that builds something real. And that willingness is a muscle. Every time you choose discipline over comfort in a financial decision, the muscle gets slightly stronger. The decision becomes slightly easier. The old habit loses a little more of its automatic authority, not immediately, not dramatically, but reliably, over time. In the same way that a consistent training routine builds physical strength in increments so small they are barely noticeable day to day, but profound over months, financial discipline builds in exactly the same way. Slow, invisible in the short term, absolutely transformative in the long term. The person you need to become to change your financial life is already accessible to you. They are not some dramatically different version of yourself that requires a fundamental personality change. They are simply you operating with a different set of automatic habits. You with the structure in place. You with the decision already made. You with the direction changed. The distance between who you are today and the person who has financial freedom is not as vast as it feels. It is a series of small daily choices made consistently over time. That is it. That is the entire secret. Success is something you attract by the person you become, not by the circumstances you find yourself in, not by the market conditions or the economy or the opportunities that happen to be available, by the person you become, the person whose habits are aligned with the outcome they want, the person whose daily behavior, compounded over years, inevitably produces the result. That person is who you are becoming, starting with the decision you make today. Starting with the override of the old habit in this one moment, and then the next, and then the one after that. Let me bring this to a final point. Because everything we have covered comes down to something very simple that you can do before today is over. The habit that has been secretly keeping you poor is the habit of consuming everything you earn. And the replacement for that habit is also very simple, though not always easy to execute. Decide, right now, what percentage of everything you earn from this point forward belongs to your future. Not your landlord's future, not your cable provider's future, not the restaurant's future, your future, a specific number, written down, committed to. And then build the structure that makes that commitment automatic, because automatic is what the old habit was. The new habit must be just as automatic to win. Start where you are. Start with what you have. If the number feels small, start with it anyway, because the size of the number is far less important than the existence of the habit. The habit of giving your future a portion of everything that comes in, every time, without exception, no matter how small, is the habit that replaces the one that has been holding you back. And once that habit is established, once it is real and consistent and automatic, then you increase the number. Gradually, continuously. As your income grows, as your discipline grows, as your identity as a person who builds rather than merely consumes becomes more real, the path to financial freedom is not a dramatic moment of inspiration. It is a quiet decision made today, and then made again tomorrow, and then the day after that. It is the water finding the crack in the stone, working steadily, invisibly, with absolute patience, until the stone yields. It is the new path through the forest, walked deliberately day after day until it becomes the natural one. It is the discipline that feels like sacrifice at first and eventually becomes the foundation of everything you have that matters. No one is coming to fix this for you. No one is coming to build the habit on your behalf. No one is coming to override the old pattern for you in the moments when it pulls hardest. This is the one thing that must come from inside you, from your decision, from your structure, from your commitment to what your future requires over what the present moment demands. That is not a burden. That is freedom. Because it means the outcome is in your hands. It always has been. The money habit that has been secretly keeping you poor ends the moment you decide it does. Not eventually. Not when conditions are better. Right now. With the next financial decision you make it differently than the old habit would have made it. Make it as the person you are choosing to become, and then make the next one the same way. That is how it ends. That is how everything real begins.